The vast emptiness of space glimmered with the metallic hulls of the alien fleet. Commander Suk stared out from the bridge of the massive warship, his eyes reflecting the countless star systems they had conquered. The collective had spent decades systematically eliminating any potential resistance, crushing civilizations beneath their technological might. On this day, they were celebrating their ultimate victory. Holographic displays showed conquered territories, blue sectors marking their complete dominance. Thousands of alien officers cheered, their multiple limbs waving in synchronous celebration. They believed no force in the known universe could challenge them. Deep within the command center, Junior Navigation Officer Kira noticed something unusual on the long-range scanners. A tiny blip appeared, almost insignificant, approaching from an uncharted sector. Most officers would have dismissed it, but something made her zoom in and run additional scans. The blip grew larger. Strange energy signatures unlike anything in their database began registering. Kara's hands moved quickly across the holographic controls, her breathing slightly accelerated. She realized this was no ordinary approach. "Commander," she called out, her voice cutting through the celebration noise, "we have an unidentified fleet approaching." Suk turned, his expression changing from jubilation to mild curiosity. The celebration around them continued, but a subtle tension began spreading across the bridge. The approaching fleet's configuration was unlike anything they had encountered. No standard weapon signatures, no typical propulsion systems. It was alien in a way that defied their comprehensive galactic database. Kara's scans revealed something even more intriguing. The fleet's communication patterns were erratic, almost primitive, yet carrying an underlying complexity that suggested advanced intelligence. Random burst transmissions, seemingly chaotic but potentially containing intricate coded messages. "Origin?" Suk asked, moving closer to the scanning station. "A small blue-green planet called Earth," Kara responded, pulling up limited information. The planet appeared unremarkable, a medium-sized world in an ordinary solar system. The celebration around them continued, but a growing sense of unease began to spread. Something about this approaching fleet felt different. It didn't match any known invasion or exploration pattern in their extensive records. Senior officers began discussing the anomaly, their multiple languages mixing in a complex linguistic dance. Some laughed, dismissing the potential threat. Others watched the scanners with growing concern. Commander Suk understood one fundamental rule of galactic conquest: never underestimate an unknown variable. His decades of military experience had taught him that overconfidence was the quickest path to defeat. The approaching fleet continued its steady advance. No aggressive maneuvers, no standard communication protocols. Just a consistent, almost methodical movement that suggested profound intention. Kara continued running diagnostics. The more she analyzed, the more questions emerged. The fleet's technological signatures were strange, seemingly primitive by their standards, yet carrying an adaptive quality that suggested rapid technological evolution. "Prepare preliminary communication protocols," Suk ordered. "But maintain defensive readiness." Little did they know, humanity was about to introduce itself to the galaxy in a way no civilization had ever anticipated. The approaching fleet represented something far beyond a simple military force. It was the harbinger of a species that would redefine the very concept of interstellar engagement. The celebration continued, the massive alien warship floating majestically against the starry backdrop. Thousands of officers remained unaware that their moment of triumph was about to become the prelude to their most significant challenge. Earth was coming. And nothing would ever be the same again. The first contact between the human fleet and the alien collective happened with unexpected swiftness. Captain J. Park stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, his eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the alien fleet's massive formations. "Incoming transmission," announced Lieutenant Yoon, her fingers dancing across communication panels. The alien message arrived in complex mathematical sequences, full of what seemed like diplomatic posturing and demands for immediate surrender. Jay smiled. Humans had learned long ago that first encounters were more about perception than actual communication. The alien fleet surrounded them, their weapon systems charged and ready, expecting a typical response of fear or submission. Instead, the human fleet did something completely unexpected. They began moving in seemingly random patterns, breaking every known rule of space engagement. Each ship moved independently, creating a chaotic dance that confused the alien tracking systems. The alien commanders watched in disbelief. Their sophisticated targeting computers struggled to lock onto the human vessels. What appeared to be random movement was actually a carefully orchestrated strategy of unpredictability. Lieutenant Yoon detected the aliens' growing confusion. Their communication channels became increasingly erratic, filled with what sounded like urgent discussions and rising panic. The humans were playing a psychological game as much as a military one. Suddenly, small human probe ships began launching not as weapons, but as information gatherers. These tiny vessels darted between massive alien ships, collecting data at speeds that overwhelmed the collective's defensive networks. Commander Suk watched in growing horror. His perfectly planned defensive formations were being dismantled not through direct confrontation, but through a method of engagement that defied all known military logic. The human ships used something the aliens had never encountered, adaptive technology that could reconfigure itself in milliseconds. What looked like a simple communication probe could suddenly transform into a sophisticated electronic warfare device. "They're not fighting," Suk muttered to himself, "they're learning." Each human action seemed designed to gather information, to understand the alien systems better than the aliens understood themselves. It wasn't about destruction, it was about comprehensive comprehension. J. Park's strategy was simple yet brilliant. Instead of attempting to destroy the alien fleet, he was systematically mapping their technological vulnerabilities. Every probe, every seemingly random movement was collecting critical data. The alien defensive systems began experiencing unexplained glitches. Communication networks started fragmenting. What had seemed like an impenetrable technological fortress was revealing unexpected weaknesses. Kira, the navigation officer from the alien flagship, watched in growing concern. The human approach was nothing like the dozens of civilizations the collective had previously conquered. These humans moved with an intelligence that seemed almost organic, adaptive beyond any technological prediction. 3 hours into the engagement, no actual weapons had been fired. Yet the human fleet had already achieved something remarkable. They had completely disrupted the alien fleet's operational capacity without firing a single direct shot. "They're neutralizing us," Suk realized, not by force, but by understanding. The human communication transmissions, when they occurred, were equally strange. Short, cryptic messages that seemed more like complex puzzles than standard military communications. The aliens' translation algorithms struggled to make sense of them. As the first phase of engagement concluded, one thing became crystal clear: humanity represented something entirely new in the galactic landscape. They were not conquerors in the traditional sense. They were explorers, analysts, adaptable beings whose primary weapon was their capacity to learn and adjust faster than any known civilization. The collective had rejoiced in their previous victories. But facing humanity, they were about to learn that true strength wasn't about technological superiority, it was about the capacity to evolve, to understand, and to transform. The first engagement was over. And it was just the beginning. The strategic disruption began quietly, almost imperceptibly. Hyun Kim, the human tactical specialist, understood that true warfare wasn't about massive explosions or direct confrontations. It was about breaking systems from within. Alien communication networks started experiencing strange interference. What initially seemed like minor technical glitches rapidly transformed into comprehensive system failures. Each alien communication channel became a potential point of vulnerability. Lieutenant Yoon deployed sophisticated quantum interference probes, small devices that could penetrate the most secure alien technological defenses. These probes didn't destroy systems, they simply observed, analyzed, and subtly manipulated internal protocols. The alien collective's defensive networks, which had conquered dozens of civilizations, began experiencing unexplained breakdowns. Critical communication pathways suddenly rerouted. Defensive systems started responding to commands that never originated from their primary control centers. Commander Suk watched in growing frustration. His perfectly designed technological infrastructure was being dismantled not through direct attack, but through a method of engagement that seemed almost biological in its approach. The humans weren't fighting, they were adapting. Each human action appeared calculated yet unpredictable. Where traditional military strategies demanded linear thinking, the human fleet moved like a living organism. They didn't attack specific targets, they transformed the entire operational environment. Quantum entanglement devices planted during the first engagement now activated. These weren't weapons in the traditional sense, they were information parasites that could simultaneously exist in multiple system states, breaking fundamental rules of technological engagement. The alien tracking systems began seeing multiple versions of human ships simultaneously. Some appeared in one location, while identical configurations existed in completely different sectors. This technological illusion created massive confusion within the alien command structure. Kira, the navigation officer, tried desperately to make sense of the emerging situation. The human approach defied every strategic protocol she had ever learned. They weren't following any recognizable pattern of invasion or engagement. Critical alien infrastructure started experiencing systematic failures. Power distribution networks became unpredictable. Defensive shields flickered unexpectedly. Communication relays transmitted conflicting information across different command levels. J. Park watched the developing scenario with calculated calm. Each strategic move was designed not to destroy, but to demonstrate the fundamental weakness of the alien technological infrastructure. Humanity was teaching a lesson about technological vulnerability. The disruption wasn't just technological, it was psychological. The alien leadership began questioning their own systems. Trust in their technological superiority started crumbling. Every confirmed fact became a potential point of doubt. Smaller human probe ships continued their intricate dance between massive alien vessels. They collected information, introduced subtle manipulations, and disappeared before any defensive response could be mounted. They were digital ghosts moving through a rigid technological landscape. Han Kim's team had prepared for this moment for years. They understood that modern warfare was about information, adaptation, and the ability to transform faster than an opponent could comprehend. The aliens were experiencing a fundamental technological paradigm shift. Alien commanders started issuing conflicting orders. Their communication channels, once a model of efficiency, now resembled a chaotic network of uncertainty. The human strategy was brilliant in its simplicity: create confusion, introduce doubt, and let the system collapse from within. As the strategic disruption reached its peak, the alien collective realized something terrifying: they were facing an opponent who didn't just understand technology, but could fundamentally reimagine how technological systems could function. The humans weren't just fighting a war. They were demonstrating a completely new approach to technological engagement, one that transformed warfare from a physical confrontation into a complex, adaptive dance of information and possibility. The strategic disruption was complete. And the aliens were about to discover that humanity represented something far beyond a traditional military threat. The psychological warfare began subtly, like a whisper that gradually becomes a deafening roar. Lieutenant Yoon understood that breaking an enemy's spirit was more powerful than destroying their ships. Alien communication channels started receiving strange transmissions. Human messages appeared in multiple languages, containing complex cultural references, historical narratives, and seemingly random emotional content. These weren't just communications, they were psychological probes designed to create profound mental disruption. Commander Suk watched his crew's morale deteriorate rapidly. The human transmissions carried an unpredictable quality that challenged everything the alien collective understood about communication and psychological stability. The first psychological breakthrough came through unexpected channels. Human probes began broadcasting stories of Earth, not military propaganda, but personal narratives. Tales of individual human struggles, survival, and resilience. These stories did something remarkable: they humanized the approaching fleet. Alien crew members started experiencing emotional responses they couldn't comprehend. Some felt inexplicable admiration. Others experienced deep confusion. The human approach was destroying their psychological defenses more effectively than any weapon could. Kira, the navigation officer, found herself particularly affected. The human transmissions carried a complexity of emotion that seemed impossible. They shared stories of sacrifice, hope, and unexpected compassion that contradicted everything the collective believed about warfare. The psychological assault continued on multiple levels. Human transmissions revealed a civilization that didn't just fight, they adapted, they felt, they understood complexity in ways the aliens had never imagined. Intercepted human communication showed something truly terrifying, a species that could simultaneously be destructive and compassionate. Military discussions were mixed with philosophical debates, scientific discoveries, and personal reflections. This wasn't just a fleet, it was a living, breathing cultural entity. J. Park orchestrated the psychological operation with surgical precision. Each transmission was carefully designed to introduce doubt, to challenge fundamental beliefs about civilization, conflict, and survival. The alien leadership began experiencing collective psychological breakdown. Their rigid hierarchical structure couldn't process the fluid, adaptive nature of human communication. What seemed like chaos was actually a sophisticated psychological strategy. Strange phenomena began occurring across the alien fleet. Crew members started questioning their previous conquests. The stories of human resilience, their ability to overcome seemingly impossible challenges, created cracks in the collective psychological armor. Lieutenant Yoon's team had prepared extensive psychological warfare protocols. They understood that true conquest wasn't about destroying bodies, but about transforming minds. Each transmission was a carefully crafted psychological weapon. The aliens discovered something terrifying: humans didn't just fight wars, they told stories. And these stories were more powerful than any technological weapon. They introduced complexity, emotion, and a profound understanding of individual and collective experience. Communication intercepts revealed human discussions that went far beyond military strategy. They talked about art, philosophy, personal dreams, and collective hopes. This wasn't a military fleet, it was a civilization in motion. Commander Suk realized the true nature of their challenge. The humans weren't just attacking their technology or their physical infrastructure. They were dismantling their entire psychological framework, showing them a universe far more complex than they had ever imagined. Alien defensive systems began failing not because of technological interference, but because the crews operating them were experiencing profound psychological transformation. The human approach had introduced a level of complexity that their rigid systems couldn't comprehend. As the psychological warfare reached its peak, the alien collective faced a fundamental truth: they were encountering a species that understood warfare as a deeply complex, multidimensional experience. Humans didn't just fight, they communicated, they felt, they transformed. The psychological battle was complete. And the aliens were about to discover that humanity represented something far beyond a traditional military threat. They were a living, breathing testament to adaptation, resilience, and the profound complexity of intelligent life. The final confrontation arrived with an unexpected silence. Space around the alien fleet became a canvas of tension, where human ships moved with calculated precision that defied traditional understanding of military engagement. Captain J. Park stood on the bridge, his eyes reflecting a calm that seemed almost supernatural. The human fleet wasn't preparing for destruction, they were preparing for transformation. Each movement, each communication signal carried a deeper message beyond simple conflict. Commander Suk realized they were facing something unprecedented. The human approach wasn't about total annihilation, but about demonstrating a profound understanding of conflict resolution that went beyond military strategy. Suddenly, human communication channels opened. Instead of aggressive demands or traditional war declarations, they broadcast complex data streams containing scientific discoveries, cultural information, and unexpected offers of diplomatic engagement. The alien fleet's defensive systems began experiencing complete systemic collapse. But this wasn't destruction, it was a fundamental reconfiguration of their entire technological infrastructure. Human probes introduced adaptive algorithms that transformed rather than destroyed. Lieutenant Yoon managed the final phase with remarkable composure. Her team had prepared for this moment not as a military conquest, but as a potential moment of interstellar communication. Each action was calculated to demonstrate humanity's capacity for both resistance and compassion. Kira, the alien navigation officer, watched in complete amazement. The human fleet was doing something no civilization had ever attempted. They were defeating the collective while simultaneously offering a path to mutual understanding. Intercepted human communications revealed a startling truth. They weren't just fighting to win, they were fighting to demonstrate a more complex approach to interstellar engagement. Military action was simply a method of communication, not an end goal. The final moments of confrontation became a dance of technological and cultural exchange. Human ships began transmitting comprehensive data about Earth, human history, scientific achievements, and cultural complexities. It was an invasion of understanding, not territory. Commander Sook experienced something he had never anticipated: a complete psychological breakdown of his own perspectives. The humans weren't conquering, they were inviting the collective to understand a different way of existing in the universe. Quantum communication networks, introduced by human technological probes, began connecting alien systems in ways they had never imagined. Information flowed not as a weapon, but as a bridge between civilizations. J. Park's strategy became clear. This wasn't about defeating an enemy, it was about demonstrating humanity's potential for adaptation, understanding, and transformation. Each action carried multiple layers of meaning, far beyond simple military engagement. The alien fleet's command structure began experiencing a profound transformation. Their rigid hierarchical systems started becoming more fluid, more adaptive. The human approach was introducing a fundamental reimagining of organizational structure. As the final confrontation reached its peak, something extraordinary happened. The human fleet didn't demand surrender, they offered collaboration. Scientific data, technological insights, and cultural exchanges became their primary method of engagement. Lieutenant Yoon's team had prepared for this moment for years. They understood that true victory wasn't about destruction, but about creating opportunities for mutual growth and understanding. The collective realized they were facing a civilization that understood conflict as a complex, multidimensional experience. Humans weren't just fighting, they were communicating, learning, transforming. In the final moments, the human fleet demonstrated something truly remarkable. They had defeated the collective not through traditional military might, but through a profound demonstration of adaptability, compassion, and intelligent engagement. Space became silent. The alien fleet, once considered unconquerable, now faced a future defined by unexpected possibilities. Humanity had arrived not as conquerors, but as transformative participants in a complex, evolving universe. The confrontation was complete. And everything was about to change.